Welcome to Action in Business. In these times, one thing that makes the most sense right here, right now, is to secure the future of your business. Let's take action now. Here's your action coach, Jana Hoiberg.
Welcome back to the Action in Business Radio Show with your host, Action Jana Hoiberg, right here on News Talk 1460 KZNT. You're tuned in to the third installment of 4, right, Jana? We're on installment number 3.
Installment number 3.
With you and super negotiator, Mr. Dan McKenzie. And we're coming into yet another content-rich segment. So I'm going to give you some information here in just a second about how to circle back to these shows to get free access to the show archives, because you're going to listen to these over and over again. Dan is an amazing person with an amazingly deep background in the very fine art of negotiation. In the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. Reach Action Jana most anytime at 358-6936. That's 358-6936. Or at her email address at janahoiberg at actioncoach.com. That's JANNAHOIBERG at actioncoach.com. When you're ready for more information about Action Coaching and upcoming events, visit Jana on the web at actioncoachcoloradosprings.com. And this is especially important to you. We have a fan page on Facebook, and when you log into your Facebook account and you search Action in Business, you can become a fan of the show. You'll get free access to the show archives and all of the latest Action in Business information updates. And I urge you very strongly, if you don't have a Facebook account, it's perfectly safe and secure. Set it up and fan Action in Business. If you miss any of these 4 installments or any of Jana's shows, I think you're missing out on a very, very important resource as a professional, as an executive, as an employee, as a business owner, as a community leader. You've got a lot to learn by tuning in to the Action in Business Radio Show, especially when she's bringing resources to you like Dan McKenzie. Jana?
Well, thanks, Ted. In the previous segment, we were talking about escalation cycles, and now we're going to be talking about common errors within the whole negotiation area. But before we get to that, let's go and make sure that the fans remember that Brad Sugars is going to be in Denver on April 29th. That's not far from now, and the event is going to be at 6 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. at the Colorado Convention Center. Brad is the CEO of Action Coach, and he is on a Business is Booming tour going around to about 50 cities around the U.S., and this is your opportunity to be able to go and listen to somebody who is a very successful entrepreneur. He runs a number of businesses, and he's got some very practical tips that you can apply to your business. This is a don't miss, but the only way that you can get in is to be able to register beforehand, and you're going to need the code of JMH100 to be able to put into the code page so that you can actually get a ticket. And if you don't want to drive up to Denver, then just make sure you register on the event page as well so that you can join us on a bus heading up. So this is a great opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to it. There's probably going to be close to 1,000 business owners in the Colorado Convention Center, and so I think it is one that the Colorado Springs business owners need to not miss. It might be in Denver, but it's not that far, and we're making it easy for you.
Yeah, take the Action bus with Jana, and I think for just a few dollars, you're offering a nice little bit of a meal and some camaraderie together. I don't think anybody should miss this, especially because it's free, and it's Brad Sugars.
Right.
Brad Sugars is the head of the most successful, powerful, and impactful business coaching firm in the world.
And I guarantee you he will challenge you. He will force you to think outside that box and look at things in some different ways, which is exactly what Dan's been doing with us. So common errors. So you're really telling me there's really people make mistakes in negotiation?
Well,
it's not perfect.
No, thankfully for me. They're not.
Your legitimacy is intact with us, Dan. You're okay.
Give me some breathing room. That's it. It's interesting, and we do this because we're A, human beings, and B, we a lot of times get a little bit lazy about our dialogues, and we take for granted a lot of times the fact that we will arrive at some outcome. Problem is we haven't carefully defined that outcome. We haven't set goals as to what we want to achieve. We haven't looked at if those goals are sustainable and things, and so we tend to drift off and be a little bit lazy about how we conduct ourselves verbally in a conversation. Some examples of that: the two largest, for example, I'll list a few here. The two number one largest mistakes that people who negotiate make are, first of all, they are not able to separate the person from the problem in a dialogue. People can be cantankerous. They can be in a bad mood, right? You still have to get to some point where you have an optimal outcome, or you can do what we do, which is invite people to go to their balcony, which we haven't discussed in these earlier segments, which is an opportunity for everybody to take a little bit of a break. It's a tactic that allows people to kind of regain some control over their behavior a little bit. Negotiation is not mediation. Negotiation is designed to arrive at an outcome, preferably optimal. The next thing on the list, most everyone probably in this room has done it, and on the planet does it on a regular basis, and that's basing a relationship on reciprocity. What I mean by that is that people will try to buy a better relationship. They will try to attach themselves emotionally or attach themselves through some kind of a vested common interest, etc. And our suggestion is that that's not a good idea, because as you go up the tree of reciprocity, while things are good, they're good, right? It's what's good for you, what's good for me. The problem is inherently, if that deal or that agreement that you're doing is not stable, or let's say you have a third party that comes in and decides to insert their opinion on the other side and changes the focus of that dialogue after people are in the process of getting to that commitment level, once that branches off and it stops being what's good for you, what's good for me, it turns into an eye for an eye. And an eye for an eye in a negotiation is never a good thing. It means usually that that's going to go south very quickly. So in our past segments, we've talked an awful lot about the importance of legitimacy. Our suggestion is anytime that you are designing that, make sure that you are accommodating the fact that what you are doing has absolute foundational criteria that your agreement can be based on. Because at that point, it's like our earlier segment when we discussed going through a red traffic light. It allows you to be able to have a benchmark of what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, and that hopefully is backed into the goal that you've made for that.
So is some of the challenges that people have as they do negotiations is they don't look at what could happen if this falls apart? I mean, when does that come into play because a lot of times people just look at it as life is perfect, it's all rosy, and they don't look at what happens if the agreement or something doesn't take place. How does that play into it?
The one thing that, the one thing that needs to really be reinforced is there is no such thing as not having a consequence for every single thing that you do. That's accountability, right?
Right.
So consequences are an inherent part of that negotiation process. One of the biggest errors that people make, whether they're buying a car or whether they're going to the grocery store or renegotiating with their cable company, whatever they're doing, is that they have not pre-prepared what they want to achieve in terms of that goal. And when they walk into a conversation, it suddenly becomes an ad-lib discussion where everybody's throwing ideas on the table, which is great. But the definition of a good outcome by its general definition is something that's efficient, durable, easy to administer, and is fair for both sides. And if you're not pre-prepared for it, somebody who is trained and has done that is going to absolutely assume an advantageous position over you. And you can end up making concessions that are not only detrimental to the outcome of that agreement, but you could lose value in your deal on the way simply because you didn't take time to prepare.
So how often does this get business owners in trouble because they
Daily.
have not really looked at
Hourly.
Minute by minute, huh? It's happening as we speak.
It's happening as we speak, literally. Absolutely. And one of the other things, a couple of things that creep into that process, we talked about escalation cycle a little earlier, that starts a downward spiral into just a simply bad situation. Is that when people get put under moderate or extreme pressure, they tend to get away from reason and focus on emotion. And because they get tense, their blood pressure goes up, they start to get hot, tempers start to flare because they see things slipping away, or they're mad at themselves because, as you just said, Jana, they haven't taken time to prepare for something. And that's when you start to see things becoming non-optimal or suboptimal. And a couple of things that happen is that they start to get coercive. We could spend the rest of this day just simply talking about the difference between persuasive tactics and coercive tactics. No one likes to be coerced into anything. It is a fait accompli, and it is absolutely inconsistent with arriving at a durable, sustainable outcome.
Right, and I think all of us feel like we've lost when we feel coerced. We may still come to an agreement, but if we feel we've been coerced, I mean, we earlier talked about that, the car, buying the car, and a way to do it. But I think a lot of us people don't buy cars every single day, so when they go to do it, they don't often walk away with that good feeling. So it is a feeling of coercion, and we're not picking on car salesmen at all. It's just that's one of the common things that people look at.
It tends to be a very emotional transaction.
Yes.
And what I hear a whole lot from people who are buying cars is this fear and this a fear of rejection. In other words, I marvel at somebody who walks into a car dealership who believes that they need to ask the dealer permission to buy that car. That is so grossly backwards.
Right.
And you know what? We're going to have to address that at some point because that's wrong. You have a wheelbarrow full of money. They need your permission to get that money from you. And Dan, I think you touched on that on the previous installment of the show.
Well, you just brought up a great point that we'll just briefly mention, and that is one of the things that you can do. And your point, Ted, is perfect to that. Is when you get caught in a situation like that, or if you've pre-prepared, your goal is to change the dynamics of that environment.
Yes.
The person, let's just say, without picking on the car folks again, we're talking about that. They have certain expectations of what they are going to get when they're making that car, and they have tactics to use to get that. You need to change the dynamics in that environment to your favor.
Well, Dan, Ted, it has been a great show, and I really appreciate all the input and the like, and I'd love to hear from you, and you can reach me by phone at 358-6936. That's 358-6936, or by email at janahoiberg@actioncoach.com. You can visit me on the web for more information at actioncoachcoloradosprings.com. That's actioncoachcoloradosprings.com. And join us in Action in Business with Jana Hoiberg. And we're going to be going to 9 a.m. on Saturday rather than 7:30. And we've got a new lineup, so change your clocks to 9 a.m. on Saturday.